My name is Evan Morsell. I'm a recovering filmmaker. I'm a hybrid production strategist. Welcome to Renovating the Brand. All throughout this series, I'm going to be using my personal lawn as an analogy or an object lesson for what a brand renovation looks like. And to be completely transparent, I had to go through a full brand renovation myself for my business, The Rare Perspective. I had to transition from being a SymptomDriven brand to a SoilDriven brand. SymptomDriven brand is a brand that's primarily reactionary. It simply treats whatever issues arise as a result of marketplace stress. There's not much of a strategy to it. It typically only addresses the identity of the brand and doesn't go much deeper than that. Now, a soil-driven brand is fueled upon data, it's fueled upon research, it's fueled upon the knowledge of standard cultural practices that yield high peak performing results. And oftentimes as a result of that, you don't even have to deal with a lot of the flare-ups and issues that symptom-driven brands experience because the soil that fuels the top growth, right? The brand identity, it's cultivating such a healthy space that it fights off whatever challenges it would have had to endure if the soil were not conditioned for success. This is for the creative that understands that we are in what I'm calling attention warfare. So the best way I can describe it, nobody would walk into a war zone without their weapons, right? Nobody would walk out into a war zone without at least some type of armor or protection. Nobody walks out into a war zone without a strategy, right? I mean, people are just, I'm gonna put these down. Nobody goes out without a plan. So why would you put your brand on the front lines without a plan? By removing the weeds in your brand, you fully unlock the potential that your brand has to be its best self. And that's what I want for you in this journey. Before we even get to phase one, right? Before we get to discovery, I highly recommend that we're on one accord in regards to how we're defining a brand. I align with Marty Neumeier, who wrote The Brand Gap. He also wrote Zig in a book called Zag, and they're all great on branding. Marty defines a brand as a person's gut feeling towards a product, service, or organization. And building upon Marty's definition, if we were to reverse engineer how to get to that gut feeling, I would say that it's a culmination of the micro activities, the systems, and the cultural practices that combine together produce that gut feeling. Some of the techniques, some of the approaches, methodologies that I'm going to recommend to you, they're going to come off maybe as being a little bit extreme. Your peers, your colleagues, they may even think you're crazy, but you have to push through. You have to stick with it. There is beauty in the process. Trust the process, all right? To give you an example of what that would look like from the lawn analogy, I eliminated my entire lawn. There was no grass when I started off rebuilding my soil. And when I was out in my lawn working, in the lawn, it would not be uncommon for my neighbors to beep their horn, to stop by our driveway, knowing that my wife and I were new to the neighborhood, and they know that. And, they would say things like, hey, I see you're really passionate about taking care of your property, but I just want you to know that I've tried what you're doing. I've seen what you're doing, and I've tried it myself a couple times, and there's just something about the soil in our neighborhood. Seeds just don't germinate the right way. And to make a long story short, this is my brand. Oh yes, this is my lawn, right? So my lawn represents my brand, and this is my neighbor's lawn. Oh no. Do you see the difference in our brand identity? I don't have magic seeds, right? We started off with the same soil. Why does my brand look so different? I wanted to be the next Bradford Young. I want to be the next Peter McKinnon at times. But my clients were saying otherwise consistently. As I audited those experiences, I realized, I was pretty much adding the brand development piece as an addition to my filmmaking. And the compliments that I was receiving that I translated almost as being backhanded were that, the experience and the ability to produce content that was mission aligned and mission driven was just extremely valuable. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. It's great that it's mission driven. Did you see that B-roll shot though? But I had to realize that I was actually coming to life the most in my creative journey during these brand development workshops. I was the most invigorated. I was experiencing what I guess is similar to a runner's high, if you will. I don't run, so I wouldn't know. Need to work on that. But I was experiencing that while working with, different executives and different marketing directors and collaborating towards completing their goal. That's what really brought me the most joy in the creative process. So it didn't make sense for me to continue moving forward, positioning myself as an industry-leading filmmaker, when really where my heart was positioned, where my results were positioned, were all in alignment with developing brands first and then producing the content as a result of the development. Lo and behold, that's where we are. So if you have any questions, I would love to know where your sticking points are in your brand right now. What challenges are you facing? I don't want this to be a one-sided lecture. That's not fun, all right? And I'm sure your first question is probably, what's the first step in brand development? What's the first step in a brand renovation? Well, we're going to talk about that in the next episode, all right? See you soon.